session on. Looking forward to bringing us all into this really important topic, and I think a very rich discussion with some amazing people today. But first, I want to invite us into a unitive experience together with a few breaths. So let us all just feel our feet on the ground and take a few unifying breaths together. Close your eyes if you want, and just breathe in the essence of unity. Just slowing your breath and becoming aware of the rising and falling of your chest and abdomen. And with each exhalation, really feeling the peace that comes from that breath. And as you breathe in this expression of unity, this experience of unity, really allow yourself to surrender into this larger field. We invite in the essence of peace through unity, that when we really fully embody unity as the true nature of our reality, we experience peace. And we are so happy to bring you some amazing people today. I'm going to bring them on screen for you. And I'm going to save our time and not give really long introductions. But we have a panel here today to really explore this idea of a unitive narrative, give you a little bit of history, and then deepen into this and look at what's the consequences when we fully embody this and organize our lives, our species around unity as this guiding and life-giving force that we know is right here amongst us. So I have Jude Curran here with us, cosmologist, author, Bob Atkinson, with, again, another author. Part of everyone here is a part of the Unitive Narrative Synergy Circle, and Adam Hall. And I am Julie Kroll. It's so nice to be with you. Adam is an author as well, and it is, you're going to get to feel their essence. I encourage you to visit the Trello board, and we'll make sure their bios are there so you can learn more about each of these people. But first, we're going to turn to Jude Curran and ask, what is the unitive narrative? Jude, what is it? What's this brief history? And then really deepen into the science of unity as well. So, Jude, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to be here, having this sharing and exploration about something that really only began to flow through as a possibility 6 months ago. And it began when last summer, a group of change makers who'd been involved with the United Nations, especially, and all the civil society around the Sustainable Development Goals that have been signed off by 193 countries, were basically convened as an evolutionary leader synergy circle of thought leaders, and with a shared understanding that the Sustainable Development Goals were not going to happen with a mindset of siloed perspective, and that the only way that they had an opportunity to be implemented effectively was essentially to turn around and come from a perspective of unity in diversity. And so the early gatherings of our circle of about 100 people by mid-December had come up with a very broad consensus that to be able to move forward in terms of unity-based interventions and implementations and methodologies, we needed some form of consensual and unifying and unitive-based narrative. So a group of us put our hands up. I said, okay, we'll take a run at this. And so by sort of late-ish February, that little drafting group had come to a bigger drafting group and then to the whole circle by February, March, with the text of a unitive narrative. And that's now on the SDG Thought Leader Circle website. And Julie, I don't know if one of us can put that into chat at some point. And also very much as the SDG Thought Leader Circle or a synergy circle of the evolutionary leaders, that unitive narrative in its generic form, in its foundational form, is also on the evolutionary leaders website. So as it pertains to the SDGs, it's on the SDG TLC website. Other than that, it's foundational form, which can be used in many, many, many different ways, is on the evolutionary leaders website. So to just take a step back on why this came forward, I mean, from the earliest times, human beings have shared narratives to try and understand the nature of the world and our place in it. And we sought to integrate our inner and outer experiences of life, and vitally to imbue them with meaning and purpose. And Bob will talk to this a lot more, and Adam will talk to the experience of this one much more. And we've already had an early sense of it through Julie's beautiful visualization for us. But those earlier narratives have progressively been peripheralized and superseded by a paradigm that's based on a secular science of solely materialistic reality and a worldview of apparent separation. And while such a perception has enabled us to achieve significant technological innovations, its cosmology, its worldview, describes a universe that's devoid of meaning, of life-affirming meaning, and bereft of purpose. And despite their benefits, its technologies also suffer from that sort of exclusion of the inner as well as outer perceptions of reality, and a disassociation from our innate humanity and kinship with all life and cultures, both on our planetary home, Gaia, and the whole cosmos. And what this has done is effectively driven a schism in our collective psyche and motivated duality-based and unsustainable behaviors. We've literally dismembered our psyche and forgotten who we really are. And those behaviors have come to existentially threaten our collective future as a species, as well as our planetary home, Mother Earth, Gaia. And this is why unitive narrative, we feel, is so important now, because the presumptions of the secular science of separation are being found to be fundamentally flawed. They're wrong. And instead, the evidence of new scientific breakthroughs is revealing an understanding of the unified nature of reality and showing an inherent meaning and evolutionary purpose embodied in our entire universe, and thus in Gaia and in us. And the realization that we're inseparable from each other and the entirety of reality. And this has enabled a unitive narrative to emerge. So drafted by members of the SDG TLC, what it aims to do is to provide an emergent cosmological, planetary, interspiritual, and societal foundation to serve and support the conscious evolution of humanity and help heal our collective worldview from separation to a perspective of unity in diversity. And what it does, and I hope we'll explore this later, it empowers us to envision, and it gives us hope, authentic hope, to co-create a love-based rather than separation-based future, and where regeneration and life-based economic development, unitive justice and peace are natural outcomes of a world that works for all people, for Gaia and all her children. So to paraphrase the great narrator of human experience, Joseph Campbell, again, Bob may come back to Joe Campbell's perspective here. The only narrative that's going to be worth thinking about in the immediate future is one that's talking about the planet and all beings on it. This new narrative will need to be grounded in widespread unitive consciousness, which includes a felt sense of unity with all life, unity with the ineffable source of all being, and unity with the evolutionary flow of our entire universe. So that's how our unitive narrative came about, and that's its foundational aim. But Julie, would you like me to go on and just talk a little bit more about the underpinnings and the
Yes,
science?
I would love that now. And I just want to presence that your book, The Cosmic Hologram, will be this amazing resource for people as if you're curious in looking at the science. But I'm going to ask Jude to come in, and it's hard to summarize the cosmic hologram in 5 minutes, but we're going to presence the science, and we're going to invite that into some more deeper inquiry toward the end, with hopefully some time for some question and answers too. But yeah, Jude, would you talk a little bit more about the science and the underpinnings of this unitive narrative?
I'd be delighted to, Julie. And I think the really vital thing is this science is converging with universal wisdom teachings, indigenous wisdom teachings, spiritually based traditions into a literal, integrated and unified perspective of the nature of reality itself. So the scientific underpinnings and framing of the unitive narrative that can empower unitive and so love-based action, I call it the science of love sometimes, are essentially that the appearance of our universe, its energy, matter, and its space-time, arises from deeper non-physical realms of intelligence and causation and intent, as digitized and vitally meaningful in formation, which is why my book's called The Cosmic Hologram, in formation at the center of creation, and pixelated at the most minute scale of existence. And its informed reality manifests holographically with its innate wholeness expressed in nested and relational complexity of all its differentiated and diverse parts. Secondly, fundamentally, mind and consciousness aren't something we have, but rather what we and the whole world are. And thirdly, our universe meaningfully and purposefully and as a unified entity exists to evolve from simplicity to complexity and diversity. Ever greater levels of individuated and collective self-expression, self-awareness, and conscious interdependence and interbeing. And on a global scale, our planetary home Gaia's continuing emergence is embodied in collaborative and synergistic relationships and dynamic co-evolutionary partnerships. And again, crucially now, the conscious evolution of humanity may be realized as an integral part of our planet's own evolution, evolutionary progress and purpose. The discoveries and the evidence for this are being shown at all scales of existence and across many, many fields of research to show that we are co-creative, microcosmic co-creators with our universe and with our planetary home as inherently living and dynamically evolving beings. And the story of our universe and of Gaia, which is really the evolutionary story that I share in my forthcoming book, which takes all of this further, begins 13.8 billion years ago, but not in the old paradigm story of an implied chaos of a Big Bang, but a beautifully fine-tuned, exquisitely ordered first moment of an ongoing big breath. When our sentient universe emerged and as space expands, as time flows from past to present to future, life, all life, our entire universe as life, embodies such a profound evolutionary impulse that's driven not randomly, but guided, informed, joyfully experienced by sentience and by cosmic mind. And so finally, to quote Teilhard de Chardin, the philosopher who said a century ago that someday we shall harness the energies of love, and then, for a second time in the history of the world, humanity will have discovered fire. And so what we're sharing today and through World Unity Week and the 99 Days to Peace and coming home together and beyond is that someday is here and now. And as we wake up to the radical reality of a new and unitive narrative, we'll also discover as a species, and perhaps for the first time, who we really and truly are and who we can consciously evolve to become.
Thank you, Jude. That was beautiful and sets the context so beautifully for the unitive narrative and why now on the planet. Those three underpinnings are so potent when you take that in and really allow that to shift consciousness. And so I encourage you, I put a link in the chat where you can find the unitive narrative in its text. And then there's also a couple links there. I'll share more at the end with a few more links, but I did put Jude's 2 books. Her forthcoming book, The Story of Gaia, really brings to life what we're talking about for the reader. It's, I told Jude, I had such a visceral, mystical experience of really feeling and experiencing Gaia inside myself, from single cell to who we are now. And so as we're looking at conscious evolution, I do encourage you to check out those 2 resources and also the unitive narrative on that link on the Evolutionary Leaders site. Thank you, Jude. So we're going to shift now and ask a narrative. Why a narrative? And storytelling is an important part of our evolution on this planet for cultural evolution here. And we have a master expert with us here today, Bob Atkinson, who also has a forthcoming book that's going to be groundbreaking for us when we're looking at our journey to wholeness and really embodying this unitive narrative. So I'm happy to bring Bob in here and have Bob tell us a little bit about unity. And we're talking about a narrative. What is the power of narrative and collective storytelling on our collective human journey here?
Thanks so much, Julie, for this great topic. It's a huge one that I've written a few books on, so I'll just hit the highlights here. There certainly is a power in our stories. We are the storytelling species. Stories inspire, teach, and guide us. And from humanity's beginning, when indigenous peoples sought wisdom to live by, a pattern of wholeness was woven into the heart of the stories they told. Within these ancient stories, now known as myths, great truths were established. These stories held communities together, whether by metaphor, symbol, pattern, or repetition. Stories offered the first peoples a unifying framework for living in harmony with the flow of the natural world around them. These were unitive narratives, essential to their individual and collective well-being. Across many millennia, communities expanded, spread out, became more diverse, and experienced conflict and disorder. Out of all of this emerged divisive stories that maintained separation and challenged the trajectory of the evolutionary impulse. Most of humanity's history has been characterized by competing narratives that fought for the minds and hearts of people everywhere. But as Plato noted, there is a pattern set up in the heavens that is also embedded within us. This pattern is derived from a holistic worldview in which all creation is seen as one whole, consisting of many interdependent parts, as expressed in the Hermetic principle, as above, so below. This principle, integrating harmonious levels of reality from the macrocosm to the microcosm, is upheld by both science and spirituality. This pattern on the level of the microcosm is found in mythology, rites of passage, mysticism, and psychology. It leads us to an understanding of the inherent wholeness of all life forms, the natural world, and the entire creation. It is a springboard for the realization of a unitive consciousness and is designed to bring about an inner transformation that prepares us to be transformers of society. The pattern consists of 3 parts. In my previous books, I've tweaked the traditional terms for these parts and referred to them as beginning, muddle, resolution. In my next book, the 3 parts are call to wholeness, path of purification, and return to wholeness. This pattern is the blueprint for an all-human journey to our individual and collective fulfillment. As we approach a consciousness of global integration, a new story of our wholeness is needed to frame this emerging interconnectedness. A half-century ago, mythologist Joseph Campbell provided some guidelines for such a new story when he said that a living, creative mythology relevant to this fresh new world would serve the 4 functions of bringing us more into accord with ourselves, others, the mystery of life, and the universe around us. He called these functions the psychological, which guides us through an integrated life, the social, which validates and maintains societal norms, the cosmological, which offers an image of the universe in accord with the knowledge of the time, and the mystical, which awakens and maintains in us a sense of awe, humility, respect, and gratitude in recognition of that ultimate mystery. These are the 4 functions or necessary qualities and characteristics of a new story needed to guide our journey toward building a world founded upon unity and diversity. This is exactly what a unitive narrative is designed to do. And my book, Living into Wholeness, a guide to the new story of our evolving consciousness, coming out this fall, provides the framework and all the tools necessary for telling our own version of a unitive narrative built upon these 4 functions. Unitive narratives are needed now more than ever to lead us through a process of shifting the focus from individual well-being to collective well-being. In our time, the part no longer takes precedent over the whole. Both are completely interdependent. Exclusive emphasis upon any one part endangers the whole. The stories we tell can change the world. As our stories tap into ageless themes and archetypes, we will connect the human family one story at a time. This is what will help us all, individually and collectively, in the all-important process of living into wholeness and building a culture of peace on earth.
I love you guys. Thank you, Bob. We're so enriched when we think of this now. So we're journeying here from the cosmology and the new science showing us from the cosmology, and we're moving to the mythology and our culture, and then we're going to move into the personal and the experience here. And I love this panel because we have such richness here of insight and wisdom for all of you. in the chat, you saw hopefully Bob's first book, not first book, one of the books that I've referenced is The Story of Our Time. And you can find that in the chat. The forthcoming book, Living into Wholeness, isn't on Amazon yet, but watch for it and pre-order it. It will be coming out in November, I believe. Is that right, Bob?
Yes, that's right.
November.
That's the plan.
And that's the plan. And Jude's book, The Story of Gaia, is already a bestseller in pre-sales, which tells you it's a good one. Pick that up. So thank you, Bob. We're going to bring everyone back on again, but for right now, I want to bring in Adam Hall, whose book I will highlight again in the chat for you, Divine Genius. And Adam's going to bring us into that experiential embodiment of this genius, of this unity that we're speaking of today. And look forward to hearing what you have to say, Adam. It's all yours.
Well, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Bob, and Jude. It's wonderful to be here with everybody today. It's such an important time, an intersection on Pachamama, the earth, during these great times of earth changes. And as Julie was just sharing, that we've looked at a greater overview of the Unitive new narrative in the context of science and storytelling and what's coming forth. But I want to drop a little bit into, what does it mean to you? I mean, all of that is really important, but if we think about it, when it gets right down to it, we must ask ourselves, does this make us feel safe? Do we feel this is a place of deep inner trust? Does this support our joy, our place of feeling love over fear? We're coming into a harmony within ourselves and in our environment, to coming into that peace, bringing those pieces of our lives into the peace of our lives. So I want to touch on that briefly today, because what could be more important that if we don't feel it personally and we don't know the empowerment that the Unitive narrative comes forth, then how are we to do what our brothers and sisters in the indigenous cultures referred to as, how do we grow corn with it in our lives? How do we bring it alive? And imagine, if you will, just say a telescope. And if you're looking through the telescope of your life, and in the outer world of the telescope, we see our science, and we see our economics, and we see our politics, our community, our family, all of it's there. It's all there. And of course, we can see that in its pieces, in its fragmentation. And of course, we can see it in the wholeness of it as well. And I want to invite us to look through the other end of the telescope for a moment, so that we come into our inner being, so that we begin to see those pieces of our beautiful humanness, the elegance of this design that we all experience, our bodies, our hearts, all our emotions and our deep feelings and inner feelings that we go through, our beautiful minds, and of course our spiritual nature and our soul nature. And as we come into that view, looking inward, we too can see that in its pieces, but we also can experience in its wholeness. And the invitation of the Unitive new narrative is to bring all those inner pieces into one voice, a voice where we can fully fulfill our soul's greatest expression in our lives. And I believe that the Unitive new narrative offers a deeply enriching invitation into this inner experience, not just in the outer whole world, but the inner wholeness of our being, where those fractured parts of our lives, those pieces of our lives begin to become into harmony, like the harmony of the stars above us that sing to us in their own way in the night sky. And recently I fulfilled a life accomplishment that had meant so much to me. Well, maybe it's lifetimes for that matter. And I want to share with you just a photo of this moment in time, of this one man's soul that was a culmination of bringing those pieces and the unity of my own voice together, you know, as a place of love, as a place of peace, as a place of joy, to reach for the abundance of my own personal life. And I'm going to bring up this photo and just share briefly what this meant. Can you see that photo? Is that there, Julie?
Yes, Adam, it's beautiful. Yes.
Okay, well, I just won't tinker with it for a moment. I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
And full moon last Tuesday night, I was summiting in the holy mountains of Peru. At 14,500 feet, I held this ceremony with my dear brother, Don Francisco, who I have been working with since 2005. And I was trekking for peace, amongst the personal things, of course. And this really, it began this 99 days, this trek to Peace Week that we're all coming into. And there'll be a video, it'll all be released at that time. But here it is, I'm on this personal journey, and at the same time, bringing my inner voice, my deep inner yearning for peace in my own personal lives. And we had a beautiful ceremony that invoked peace. And it brought me to my knees in the power of Don Francisco, broadcasting an invocation, shrouding the earth, bringing it down from the heavens above to bring forth peace on earth, not as a prayer, but as an invocation to our own personal power that comes from the unitive voice within. And imagine when we bring our unitive voice into our collective unitive voice, into our new story, into our unitive evolutionary new story, the power of that, nothing is impossible. So I look forward to sharing that with all of you as we kind of round out this journey that we're all on. And I want to leave this moment with you, at least this few moments that I have, by sharing with you what the unitive narrative has meant to me on an even, more, I would just say, harmonic level, peace within. And as I read pieces of the unitive new narrative and was working with Jude and Bob and many other beautiful souls to help bring this alive and release this into the world, I read it in two ways. I read it in a way that just the power of it as a whole, from a scientific, from a storytelling, from our time has come perspective. And then I listened from within and discovered what was embedded in this unitive new narrative, the vibration of the words, the frequency of those words. How did that land on my heart? And I just want to share with you, because the last words in the unitive narrative are very telling. And I believe they invite us all to come into this higher frequency of love, of joy, of peace, and abundance, with a deeper connection with all life. And when I read that last paragraph a few times, here's what came forth from me. I'm alive. I'm alive with love. I'm alive with peace. I'm alive with joy. I'm alive with the abundance of the universe. I'm alive with creation itself. My heart sings the songs of togetherness, lonely no more, guided by the wisdom of the heart. I'm alive again, held in the arms of creation and connection with others. I feel so alive. Thank God I'm alive with love and peace again. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, Adam. I love that intimacy with the living universe that is inspired by your last writing of from the Unitive narrative. That's really exciting to me. I'm going to bring on our panelists here and try to wrap a little bit and transition a little bit. If any of you here have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll try to watch that. But we're going to move just into now. So here we have this cosmology and the narrative of mythology, why it's important and how it shapes culture and that personal experience. And I just want to again underline that we have the cosmological science now, and the quantum physics, everything looking at unity, from shifting from the outdated and flawed science of our universe into even the most incredible, exciting science of personal experience now. We have so much science coming out on from flow states to collective flow states. And what does that mean? From technology enhanced mystical spiritual experiences to the pharmacologically induced and psychoactive spirituality and what that means, from psychedelics to other sacred plants. So the science of the unitive experience and our collective reality is all there. It's so exciting. So this new narrative, we're encouraging everyone to live into this wholeness, right? To live into unity. So I'm going to ask the panelists here a question. Let's just, we'll unmute you all, unmute yourselves. But my first question is, integrating the narrative into our personal, professional, and collective lives now, what is the call to action? So what do we do with this unitive narrative? What can we do with it on a personal level, in a professional level, and as a collective here? We're having lots of conversations about this during World Unity Week. We're going to continue the conversations during the 99 days of unity, so a peace through unity. So you're going to hear more about it. And I just want to encourage everyone in the room, if you want more about it and you want to stay connected with unitive narrative as a thing here, there's also a place where you could sign up, unitivenarrative.com, and we will be getting a website. You can sign up and be on a mailing list there so that you're in the know of what's emerging and perhaps get involved with the Synergy Circle and other things moving forward. But panelists, Jude, Bob, Adam, what do we do with this now? What can we do personally, professionally, and as a collective? You might want to answer a piece of that or all of the above, but help us out. What do we do with this unitive narrative now? What's the call to action?
I'm happy to take a run first with Bob and Adam absolutely coming in, and Julie, your own perspectives of this, and anyone else's, of course. For me, the answer is on the tin. It says what it is, what it says on the tin. It's a unitive narrative. So what it's founded on is this understanding now that's evidence-based. And I think this is a game changer, because we, as Bob said, we've had unitive narratives in our past, in our universal wisdom teachings. But, the science that our secular society has tended to listen to has been an old paradigm of material separation. So our behaviors have followed that. And so our sort of separatist paradigm, our worldview, our mindset has driven our duality-based behaviors, which of course have now become existentially untenable and threatening. And as Albert Einstein said, you can't solve a problem from the same mindset that created it. So we have problems, huge problems, that are based on a mindset of a flawed and incorrect mindset of separation. We now, though, have the evidence and everything that that supports us to realize that we're inseparable. We're inseparable from each other, from our planetary home Gaia and our universe. So as Adam said, in whatever way, taking that in, because I think for most people, for many people, deep within us, there is that knowingness. There's in our hearts, deeply in our hearts, that's our knowingness. Marie's on the call, and I remember her coming back from a youth assembly a couple of years ago and sort of starting to talk. The unitive narrative wasn't there then, but she started to talk to the young people about unity. And they basically said, we know this, so why aren't we taught this? So for me, this is the unitive narrative underpins and frames all that we can do in terms of not just implementing, it's a huge task to implement the sustainable development goals, but from this perspective. But how do we bring unitive narrative into education? And there's a lot of folks linking up and lifting up to do just that. Victoria, I don't know if she's on the call, but we almost have a book for 6-year-olds on this. I'm in talks with a 10-year-old author, a 10-year-old published author. Yay. I know, who wants to bring this into a book for 10-year-olds, We're talking with a group, hopefully, that are educators to bring it forward for 12 to 14-year-olds. But also, we're actually in talks with our Conscious Business Synergy Circle, because conscious business and leadership often has a worldview that is that equivalent to 12 to 14-year-olds. So I think if we do something for 12 to 14-year-olds, we can also do something for transformational leadership. So there are so many very practical, very significant and rapidly developing ways we can practically serve transformational change with that underpinning and framing of unitive narrative and a message of unity and diversity, and also implicitly to inspire, empower us to expand what Einstein called our circle of compassion, the me to include the we and to include the all, as Adam said. And we have a strapline, we have a little motto at our community at Whole Worldview, which Anne-Marie is also a core team member of, which is act local. In other words, bring unitive narrative into your everyday life in whatever way. Feel global, bring it into that, global perspective of the we, and think cosmic, because its unity and its unifying perspective is cosmological. It literally covers every scale of reality and imbues it with meaning and purpose.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jude. Bob, do you want to take a...
Yeah, thanks so much, Jude, for bringing in education and what do we do with the unitive narrative now? That's so important. What I would like everyone to imagine with me that the unitive narrative is as an important text and document as any document that has come from even the United Nations. I mean, that's the level that we can begin to think of the potential of the unitive narrative on. And I'm not sure how many documents or statements from the United Nations have made it into schools, but we have the power, I think, and the connections now with the children's book in the works to take the unitive narrative into the schools, all the way up from beginning to high school and through college. I mean, that's how we'll see long-term and deep change, is as this is incorporated into the educational systems at all levels. So that's a big act. And on a general level, though, I'd like to just add also that we've already long ago achieved unity on the national level. World unity is the next stepping stone leading to the vision of peace on earth. So our challenge is to take the action most needed by each of us to work across boundaries, across differences. Our own individual call to action might be something like live in love, look upon all things with the eye of wholeness, and act as though our individual and collective well-being depended on this.
Because it does.
Because it does. Amen. Wow, this is, so rich and gorgeous. Thank you, Bob. And Adam.
Yes, indeed. And what can we do with it? Well, I'll share a little bit from a shamanic perspective. Well, what can you do with it? And then when I was sharing a little bit is, how do we, practically and pragmatically grow corn with this in our lives, right now? And, if it was a seed in your soil of your life, it's like, okay, how do I nurture that seed, that unitive voice, that unitive seed? Of course, we got to clean up our own soil, the fractured toxic pieces, but that's all part of it. But most importantly, what I would invite everybody to do, and they can start right now, tonight, why not, as a matter of fact, is to begin to reflect deeply on their story and the power of the story that each of us has in our own lives, not just the old stories of our past, because embedded within the toxicity and all the stuff of our lives, the traumas of our lives, there's so much richness and so many gems. But what do we do? Do we get marred in it? Do we operate from fear, from the past? But here is a time that I believe is really the great invitation of this moment. And the invitation is, we are the new storytellers. And Bob has touched upon this in his life's work in so many beautiful ways. And I'm coming out with more work around evolutionary storytelling and unitive storytelling. Why? Because within the power of just expressing yourself, sharing your little stories, inviting this place of unity, to bringing the fractured pieces of our old stories into this gem of a new story, it begins to do something, what I personally have found quite powerful. It heals our lives. We don't need a guru or teachers or anything. We are the guru. We are the teacher. So just in that own little simple process, which each of us can do in our own way, with a bit of courage and reaching for the depths of our hearts, we can tell this new story in our lives. So share your story, old and new. Let go. Bring in that old and new story, because that is a unification of really the heart, the soul, the body, our own spiritual nature, bringing that into one voice. And when we share it, it has an enormous power. It has enormous power to generate love and peace. So that would be my thought of what we can do right now to bring this unitive new narrative into our own personal lives and really make a huge, huge difference. Please share your story.
That was beautiful. A beautiful lead in to my next topic or question, if you will, of this generating love and peace. So first, I just want to add, before we move on, when Adam is inviting us to share the narrative, I invite you to share this out with all of your artist friends, all of the storytellers, every art. Invite you to share this narrative and invite them to embellish it and to bring it to life for us, because they are our storytellers, writers, poets, even the new technological artists that are doing graphic artists, and this is the invitation, share it out. So we were bold enough to describe this session by saying this is the path to peace. So I'm going to ask about a minute or so for each panelist so we can bring this to closure. But my question is, if we really believe that, do you really believe a unitive narrative is a path to peace? If it is, then why now? What do we need to do? Why now? Is there an urgency? What is that path to peace? How does the unitive narrative really help us underpin a path to peace? Jude.
Thanks, Julie. I actually was on a panel earlier today on unitive justice, and that also based on unitive narrative, because we know our worldview has been a worldview of separation, and a worldview of separation drives literally a world of suffering. Our collective psyche has been dismembered by such a perspective. We're literally in pieces. And however hard we try to cooperate from that perspective, it's rather like the realization that we could never achieve the Sustainable Development Goals coming from that perspective of separation. When we turn around and with the evidence, that supports us, that gives us strong grounding in the good soil, gives us authentic hope and perspective, we can actually heal that dismembered aspects of our psyche. As Adam said, we can clean up, because there is massive trauma associated with that perspective of separation. But as we remember, and the unitive narrative can hold us and frame us and root us and support us in remembering, then we can actually move from pieces to peace. And whereas conflict and inequalities and injustices are natural outcomes, they're apparently natural, they're rational choices from a mindset of separation. Justice, equality, inclusion, and peace are natural behaviors of a worldview framed by the unitive narrative.
Bob, what do you want to add to that from pieces to peace? If this is a pathway to peace, why now? What is that? Is there an urgency?
There's no question in my mind, anyway, that the unitive narrative is on the path to peace, and it will take us closer and closer the more we become familiar with it and integrate it into our lives and bring it out to the world. And there are many steps to peace, and each one of them make up the path before us. It's clear now, I think, that the steps in our what those steps in our path are. We now understand that peace on earth will happen when the human family lives as one in unity, when we fulfill our innate potential by independently discovering truth for ourselves, not following blindly, when justice is unitive, not punitive, when we have equality between women and men, when we have balance between wealth and poverty, when we have harmony between science and spirituality, when we have freedom from all forms of prejudice, and when nature is protected as a divine trust. These unifying principles, now understood as prerequisites to peace, will enable the goal of unity and diversity to be achieved on the global scale. And the unitive narrative will definitely help us to get there.
Wonderful. Don't you love these guys? And now Adam, let's add one more layer.
Indeed, unitive narrative equals peace. And most certainly each stone and step on that path of bringing our collective voice together, of course, individually begins there, but collective voice together most certainly is an embodiment of peace itself. And one of the things that I've come to learn, other than not too much when I'm at 61, as a student, longtime student of A Course in Miracles, that emphasizes over and over and over again, it all begins with unity and peace. When we hold that place of our peace, then we are able to put those steps together. So absolutely. And of course, carpe diem, there's no time like the moment. And we're here together, and let's do it together. And we are doing it together. That's what brings me so much trust in all that is emerging in our lives. And I look forward to sharing more with everybody. And thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you all. As we look at the world we built from this illusion or delusion, like Einstein says, of separation, we created so much. And as that is breaking down and we're rebuilding, we're reimagining our world from this true perspective, and we're bringing unity in, we know just on a personal level, adopting this brings you your personal peace. Like, let's begin there and breathe in that unity and embody the truth, and it brings us peace. And as we do that, just like Jude encouraged us to start local, like what's right in front of you is enough. As you embody unity and really adopt a unitive narrative and begin your life, your action, your communications from that perspective, you're helping to build a world of peace and unity for all of us. And if that's the journey of the 99 days of us coming from this place of unity and moving toward 99 days of peace through unity, for a thriving world, for a world that thrives with all of life. I can't remember, sorry, Shelley Ostroff, the last part of it, but it's about our thriving and our coming into living in harmony and peace together. So we have this opportunity. There's links in the chat. And I know we need to close just a few minutes early for more programming here. So we want to thank you all for joining us. And if you want to stay connected with the Synergy Circle, go to unitive-narrative.com, sign that email. A website will be coming. And again, share this out with all your friends, with your family, with all of your artists and author and storytelling friends. And let's work together to really build a beautiful library of unitive storytelling for all of us. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Just to be in this stream with you together right now. So just want folks to know how they can find their way around, because there's a lot more happening. So there's a website. If you haven't been here, worldunityweek.org. You can just scroll down. If you just go up to the schedule, you can go to all the events. You could even say, wait a minute, that's a lot of events, and there are, and they're amazing, full of remarkable individuals coming together. There's these rooms. You could just say, let me see what's happening in room 1, the room we're in now, and it will just give you that. And then you could click on any one of these, the Coherence Pulse. You can then drop it on your calendar to be reminded. You can easily share it. I mean, we are weaving like nature in unprecedented ways. The shared identity and shared purpose, and no longer rooted in place in a way. We're finding that we're not defined by our territories, we're defined by our values here. It's amazing, the diversity and the unity in it. Thank you so much. You know, I thought it'd be a good way to close this. Let's play that song. You sang it before, Julie, when you said that 99 days of peace through unity.
Oh, yes,
So let's give ourselves a little pause to enjoy the genius of Ben and Kristen and so many artists here who've brought their gifts to this incredible moment we find ourselves in. This is the rudest awakening we've had. Oh my God, we need each other now more than ever. Here we are as we come together again.
Thank you, John.
Let me tell you about the lie we've been living in for centuries, millennia. They say peace through domination's justifiable while building up the arsenal. future being told. Cultivating seeds we've sown. 99 days of peace through unity. 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 99 days of peace through unity.
Thank you, John. And
Right.
remind us that website to sign up to stay informed for the 99 days. What is that? 99?
Okay. It's worldunityweek.org. Sign up there. And the thing, Adam, I was so inspired when I heard you talking about your own 99 days and how we're framing that individually. I know for me too, for us, this is kind of a unique window we're finding ourselves in. Let's embrace it, catapult what we're doing, then come harvest it together in September in unprecedented unified action. We're setting up a mighty network that we all can be a part of and connect with. So there's going to be a way to build on this scaffolding and continue down this journey as we paddle together in our magic canoe moving between worlds. Yeah. Wow. Just awesome. I'm going to end the live stream.